Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Well, it's a good evening and a hello from me, but you guys have already been enjoying some of the racing action so far. A couple of real-life events to take care of while the world of sim racing was continuing on, so had to let the race start without me. So you enjoyed some lovely peace and quiet. Well, I say peace and quiet. You enjoyed the lovely sounds of this sonorous V6-powered Giulia GT3 car here that we're running for our 939 Corse Touring Car Championship. Of course, we're at round 3 of that series now, and it is at the infamous, historic Silverstone circuit. What a track to be at. What a great looking track, great looking car as well. Some of these liveries are absolutely top notch. It is good to be back, ladies and gentlemen. It has been a fortnight since I've last commented on any of the AROC Racing League's events, and I have missed it, that is for sure. You may have caught me last week in some real life stuff at the British University's karting championship for rounds 1 and 2, but I'm eschewing that this week for some fabulous AROC racing here, and it's fabulous racing so far for Colin Knief, about 11 seconds in the lead after a chaotic start to this race one. We're just under 10 minutes into this race, and yeah, it's certainly a chaotic start to this race, but Colin Knief has come out on top in the Martini liveried LPGT3 car here. 93 points he leads the championship with, so he's looking to add to that, and he's certainly on for a good weekend so far, obviously with this great race lead at the moment, and of course leading in qualifying as well with an impressive 2-minute 1.8, about 3/10 faster than his nearest rival Matt Daly, who was fairly close as well to John Cole. So still potentially a bit of a scrap to negotiate. Still, Matt Daly in fact had a great drive in this race so far. A slow start obviously with that issue earlier on as he's in the similar liveried car to Barry Clayton there. But yeah, slow start to this race, tumbles down the order, but has worked his way through and worked his way up well. Now P3 in this race at this moment in time, just ahead of Barry Clayton, who's enjoying a battle with Paul Brady there. Apologies, that is Andrew Brammer. I'm forever going to do that, but just have to accept it. I think Andrew Brammer enjoying a nice race at the moment, about a second down on Barry Clayton, but has the advantage of being able to echo his lines, has that little bit of slipstream down the straights as well. That should certainly advantage him. I believe, I'll have to double check, sorry, I haven't quite been as immersed in the world of sim racing as I perhaps should have been over the past couple of weeks with just the general life stuff really, but I do believe there is an updated handling model coming for this sort of this car. Now that has either been deployed now, and I've probably missed the memo, I'm sure. I'll quite nudge if that is the case, or yet to be deployed. If it has been deployed so far, I'm yet to try it anyway, so I can't comment on how the car drives. But what I do remember is when we set this car up a few months back now, if my memory serves me correctly, for our last go of Silverstone, I believe it was for a Sunday fun race style event on shorter layout. It was an interesting car to set up for this track. Obviously a lot of fast straights to negotiate, and that, while this car is ever so powerful, it isn't necessarily this car's biggest strength, I would say. You want to... Oh dear, that is a big off. That was a big off for Barry Clayton coming around the exit of Vale and into the final corner there. Barry Clayton off and into the infield, now under pressure from Jack Hodson. Jack Hodson, who's all of a sudden been catapulted up into the top end of the field, up the inside into the first corner. Of course, the historic start line is what we use here to run down towards that first corner. Sorry. Quite the historic starting line now. Just talking nonsense as per. So we are back into our usual which is report. Still under pressure though, Jack Hodson as we run now down towards the Brooklands complex in just a moment. Where on the defence is Jack Hodson going to go? Is he going to even try and defend, or is he going to instead try to not bleed off the time? That looks to be the case. He's decided it's not his race to be fighting at this point in time. Still half race distance to go. No need to be squabbling over a couple of points between P5 and P6. Instead, lets Barry Clayton go through and potentially forcing a mistake, and he does in fact have a mistake occur in front of him. Barry Clayton going a little bit wide on the run down towards Cops in just a second, and there we have it. Barry Clayton back behind Jack Hodson once again, so this is in fact going to be a battle that is heating up, and a battle for P5 now, as they are still side by side on the exit of Cops, now running down towards Maggott and Beckett in just a second. It's going to be Jack Hodson on the inside for the run into that corner complex. What can Barry Clayton do to fight back? They'll run down towards the final part of the circuit. Once again, one of the more technical parts of this track, of course. Out of all the parts on track, probably where you want the most downforce, or at least that high-speed aero grip. There's some other parts of the track where you want a bit more mechanical grip, but here is one of the parts where you want the least downforce now as we run down towards the final part of the lap. And late onto the race, Barry Clayton around the outside actually gets back into the lead of this battle. Running now once again down the Hamilton straight here, and that is Jack Cotton. Is that Jack Cotton off the track? No, it's not. It's Barry Clayton off the track as they headed through Aintree there by the looks of things. Now as we run back, probably not quite Aintree just yet. That was actually through Abbey and Farm there. So that is an odd place. We don't usually see cars going off there. In fact, it's quite rare we see cars going completely off track in any form of battling here at Silverstone. It's such a wide circuit. It's actually a little bit of a standout in that case in compared to some other British circuits, but of course being based on around an old airfield complex, there's plenty of space, so the track ended up being quite wide. So it's usual to see some cars going off, especially when there's only two cars battling, but it shows how close they are battling each other. Now as we head through Woodcote and down towards Cox once again, still these two just a second apart. Let's have a look what's going on the top end of the field now. It is Willingless against Matt Daly, heading through Maggotts and Beckett themselves and running back down towards Stoke in just a moment. It's going to be Willingless who is forcing his way through that, giving a little bit of slipstream to Matt Daly. And how will Matt Daly use it? He will use it well. Has a look at the outside, but brakes actually a little bit earlier than perhaps I would have expected. Can he make a move stick? No, he's still too far back. He's going to switch back to the inside line of the track and potentially open himself up for the inside down towards Vale in just a moment's time there. So smart play from Matt Daly if it had worked. It didn't quite work out this time around. Takes a slightly tighter exit on the run down towards the Hamilton straight. And as we start another lap now, it is still Matt Daly hot on the heels of Will Inglis. In fact, going to be side by side on the entry into the first corner and late on the brakes. Not even that late on the brakes, really. It's not much of a braking zone in these cars. And it is Matt Daly up into P2 ahead of Willingless. I get the feeling Willingless is going to be fighting for it though as we head later on into this lap. Can he fight it though? Has he potentially used a little bit too much of the tyres at this early stage of the race? It's not usual we would see a complete and utter tyre degradation in our 25-minute sprint races. They're about 25 minutes, but based on various things like setup, how much you've been using the tyres, as well as the nature of the circuit, it can often start to cost you a little bit of grip towards the end of the race. We are in the final 10 minutes, so we're not in the late stages just yet, but we're getting there. And Silverstone is one of those tracks, at least I find it quite easy to get a little bit of heat in the tyres, although that is just my driving style, that is just how I drive. I absolutely annihilate tyres. Maggotts and Beckett could certainly get the tyres a little bit hot. Obviously, such high-speed cornering, as well as Cox, which we're heading through at the moment. A couple of the braking zones as well, potentially, if you mess them up. But the advantage of Silverstone is, while there is some high-speed, high-engine corners, that completely is balanced out by the fact that you have some fairly long straights to allow the tyres to come down once again. So, a driver who is good on their racecraft and tyre management should be able to negotiate this track without too much of concern for the tyres. I am not one of those drivers. These guys look to be so far. Willingless, as we started this conversation, talking about, seems to be doing a good job of keeping up with Matt Daly at the moment. Let's have a look at their pace on track at this point in time. Willingless obviously running in P3 at the moment, 204.8 being his last lap, 204.2 being his best, so still up there with some pretty consistent pace actually, and that is not echoed by Matt Daly. Matt Daly obviously in the midst of battle, 204.3 on that last lap, so as we start a new lap in just a moment's time, we should start to see lap times improve, and we do. Willingless actually drops off into the 205, so as Matt Daly improves into the 203s, Matt Daly's best lap being a 202.6, second fastest car outright on track, first being Colin Knief, who has had a fairly easy go of things so far in race 1 now that he's broken 3 of the start of that race. And willing list, potentially commentator's curse. No, I won't actually say that is commentator's curse. Maybe a little bit. I was saying the car looked under decent control there and looked to be fairly happy running for him. And then obviously as we run down towards the main tree and the loop kind of part of the track, it all goes wrong. A little bit of oversteer, creeps in on the exit village for willing list, and he ends up off the track. Is able to recover, but is a little bit closer than perhaps he would otherwise like to be to Andrew Brammer, now in P4, some ways ahead of Barry Clayton actually. So my predictions of maybe the times being okay, potentially somewhat off. We're now starting to see a couple of drivers just start to feel a little bit less confident by the looks of things in terms of keeping the car on the track, really. That's the only real way I can put it. As we now head down towards Corse with Barry Clayton once again. Of course, where we've seen many drivers race good undone in the past, nonetheless, Lewis Hamilton and Max Verstappen being just 2 of those drivers. I was actually there here at this track for that year's little skirmish, shall we say, which kind of really did heat up the championship battle more than anything else that season. I think it was that one pivotal corner. So just goes to show Comps very key corner on this track. You lose a lot of time actually there. You can gain a lot of time by pushing as far wide as possible, but it will heat up the tyres and potentially invalidate the lap as well. Barry Clayton, has he dropped further back down the order? No, I think he's actually jumped up the order by the time it's corrected there. Colin Knief, meanwhile, in the Martini liveried Julia GT3, looking fantastic as ever, this car. I've waxed lyrical in the past and I will continue to do so. It is a great looking car, and Colin Knief is managing it well here. John Cole unfortunately retiring from this race. Let's see, hopefully he'll be able to rejoin for race 2. Barry Clayton ahead of Jack Hodson, running in P5 at the moment. So actually getting back ahead of Jack Hodson. Let's see, in the final 5 minutes this battle will have a part 3. As this race looks to be stabilising out a little bit now. And it was a fairly eclectic start to race 1, but we've had plenty of that in the past. Silverstone always seems to deliver those slightly more dubious and more action-packed, shall we say, race starts. It always seems to balance out, and we get some great racing later on into the race. Let's see, all running well, looking pretty as well, as we've already mentioned. So we had those technical difficulties about a fortnight ago at Hungaroring. I do apologise for that. Not entirely sure what went on there, and I can confirm I've changed quite literally nothing about the streaming setup since. And as you can see, it's running well. So I'm going to wash my hands of that one and say it actually wasn't my fault. We can see the AROC sponsors at the side of the track there. Chris Insurance, 99 Corse of course, and Halfords every now and again. Actually use the AROC Halfords discount code just a couple of days ago. A bit of work needs doing on the Mito QV as well as the 3 Series. Needs a lot more work than Mito actually, as is usually the case. And need a new toolkit, so the 8% in-store AROC discount came very handy there. So thank you AROC for that one. For those who are interested, actually, is that 175 is a fantastic tool. Brilliant advanced kit. I highly recommend it. It's completely, utterly unsponsored, of course, at this point. It's just me. It's just always really high quality stuff. The only reason I had to replace it was it got stolen. Insert Liverpool joke here. Barry Clayton's having a more difficult time than perhaps I was, though, at Halfords, with a slight off on the exit of Stowe there. As he is able to rejoin the track, and that is one of those areas where when the tyres start to drop off, you can start to struggle just that little bit more. You can catch your outwolves on one lap, especially after the more high-energy parts like Magnus and Beckett's. Stowe's your next big braking zone. Again, a lot of time to be gained by, not just going to say going wide and taking IndyCar line, but certainly pushing the limits and running down towards Vale. A lot of time to be made if you're able to do that. And it looks like Barry Clayton has found those limits and ended up in the gravel. That has allowed Jack Hodson back up into P5. So I said that part 3 of this battle might be coming. It is coming, and it continues on now with just under 5 minutes to go in this race. Of course, 3 minutes 20 left on the clock, plus another lap. Colin Knief is setting that pace and will be determining that, and he's setting a strong pace as he does so. 2 minute 2.8 still. He is by far and away the fastest car out on track. His best lap, 2-minute 2 flat. Only driver still in the 2-minute 2s at this point in time. The tyres really dropping off for some other drivers by the looks of things. Barry Clayton, Alan Matthews, Steve Knight, Rob Whitney, Jack Hodson, all in the 207, 208 region here. So drivers, I'm sure, going into the next race thinking a little bit more about the tyre management and tyre strategy for race 2 of the reverse race coming up in a few moments time. Good to see John Cole able to rejoin us and will be participating in that second race. The more the merrier, so good to see him still running with us. I'm going to have to get used to, at least for this evening, is now that the karting season has kicked off again. I've spent the entirety of the 7 hours or so that we streamed last Wednesday calling. Well, I spent the first half calling the karts cars, and eventually I got to have them. I think we should have a kart counter this evening. How many times I call these cars karts? It will certainly happen. But I can tell you that these sound a lot better than the go-karts. Hopefully. And we're running in much nicer conditions as well. Rain to be recorded here. I'm sure Guy, our server admin, event organiser, championship organiser, and weather god, he determines the time and the weather, could, if he so wished, just turn on the thunder and lightning for race 2, just to really scare and annoy the drivers. He hasn't done so yet, but maybe we'll see a joke around that some point. Conky Neef, I'm seeing there's jumped down the order. I believe that is a timing issue. No, it is not a timing issue. That is huge in this race. That is now Colin Knief down in P4. What has happened there, Colin? Oh, I wish we had a replay function up and running. Out of nowhere with a substantial lead, it's now Colin Knief down in P4. Where could that have been? That looked like it was around Brooklands and Luffield there. One small error after 25 minutes of fantastic running. Right towards the end, it is now Matt Daly in the lead of this race. What a surprise. We'll see in the next kind of 30 seconds or so why that... Well, we're assuming it was some type of issue. We'll see how much it affected his lap and you know, leave that off around that part of the track was just being sat in the gravel for a bit too long, because now it's Matt Daly who leads with a 15-second lead. A great drive by Matt Daly then, up into the lead of this race. Bearing in mind, a few laps ago, 11, 12 laps ago, he was all the way down around about P9. He now finds himself leading this race. A last to first run for Matt Daly. Helped, it must be said, by Colin Knief having an apparent issue there. Still waiting to see what happened. What a shame though for Colin Knief. Your heart's got to go out to him. A fantastic drive so far into this race. A brilliant drive so far into this season. He's been pretty much unstoppable and not a blemish on him, really. Now finally he does, and the momentum potentially not swinging away entirely is starting to look like it isn't completely owned by Colin Knief, and the other drivers may have a fighting chance in this championship. 93 points to Colin Knief's name, the others in the 40s. But this race 1 will go to Matt Daly so far as it stands. And there is that confirmation. Colin Knief on that last lap, the 2-minute 46 lap. So clearly a big off there sees him in the gravel. He is, I would like to point out, still on the road and in P4. Still a really good drive. It's by no means a bad effort, and still some points to be taken away from that. But that is going to be some welcome news for Matt Daly, Willie List and Andrew Brammer, as they're now promoted up a spot onto the podium. Andrew Brammer is now promoted onto the podium, so great drive. A bit of an Andrew Brammer classic that actually. He's always consistent. I've said it so much. He's consistent and in the midfield, and on his day he's there to capitalise when other people have a little bit of a misfortune, and he's up and into the podium later in Andrew. So well deserved there for Andrew. But we're on board with Matt Daly at the moment, who's heading down towards Stowe, all by himself in the lead of this race. I did not have that on the cards for race 1. I reckon a conspiracy hat on here, potentially an effort by Colin Knief to get a better position for race 2, the reverse race coming up in just a few moments' time. That'll that'll be an odd choice if it is his choice, but you know, could work. We'll see. But it is Matt Daly then who heads around the final corner and onto the Hamilton straight with a great drive from last to first. He takes the checkered flag. Congratulations, Matt Daly. A deserved victory, it must be said, even if it happened under slightly odd circumstances. Willingless then heads around through Vale for one last time in this race, bounces over the sausage curb, nearly ends up into a barrier, but will eventually come home second there. Congratulations, Will, great drive there as well. And Andrew Brammer, hats off there, rounding out the podium with a P3, and commiserations as he heads through to the Hamilton straight to Colin Keneath, who will come home P4, still points on the board, but not the win that he owned for so long in this race. Just goes to show anything could happen at any point here in the AROC Racing Leagues. Then we have Jack Hodgson coming home in P5 ahead of Barry Clayton. He wins out in that battle in the end. Alan Matthews, a quiet P7, but still some points on the board for him. Rob Whitney, likewise, points on the board as he furthers his championship progress. And then we have Steve Knight coming home in P9 in just a moment's time. But here is Rob Whitney coming home in P10. Sorry, no, P8. Rob Whitney could be going in P8. Steve Knight coming in just a moment in P9. And then John Cole will be classified, maybe classified P10. Don't know if I've taken the points for it. Either if he did, it would only be the 1 point. But good to see him getting some practice in for the reverse grid race coming up in just a moment. What would have been a victory parade lap for Colin Keneath is a bit of a tragic one, actually, as he comes home with still, as I say, good points, P4. But what could have been, Colin? Well, hopefully he'll make up for it in race 2, the reverse grid race, and that is his challenge for redemption. And we'll have that coming up in just a few moments' time, so don't go anywhere for the reverse grid race here at Silverstone. We'll catch you in just a second. Well, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. We're on the grid here at Silverstone for race 2 of round 3 of the 939 Corse Touring Car Championship for 2024. I think I said 2023 before, so sorry about that. It's only 6 weeks into the year, and yes, I'm still not used to it. Anyway, here is the grid for this reverse race. It is Alan Matthews and Barry Clayton. Those two should be two to watch out for. They've certainly battled each other plenty of times in the past and know how to, and I'm sure we'll get some fantastic driving from those two. Likewise, Jack Hudson in that mix as well in P3. Then we have Colin Keneath, Andrew Brammer on the next row of the grid. Then we have Willie Gliss, Matt Daly, Rob Whitney, Steve Knight and John Cole rounding out the field then. As Revs ride, it's a false start for Jack Hudson and 6 red lights on the gantry. We are away. So, what does that mean? That means that Jack Hudson, as we run it down towards turn 1, actually gets a slow start off the line for the proper start. So, unfortunate, tough luck there. Jack losing out in 2 ways, as it's a relatively clean run through that first turn. Actually, looks like we're all underway rather well there. So, well done to everyone for that. It looks like Andrew Brammer losing a couple of positions, potentially John Cole losing out big time, just as he did in race 1. Now off the track in race 2 as well. Willie Gliss, meanwhile, battling it out with Colin Keneath. Colin Keneath's going to go round the outside and on to the Wellington straight here, as it's going to be Willie Gliss with the inside into Brooklands, but not entirely sure if that is most beneficial, because it's good to have that wide entry, because it gives you the inside, well, it gives you an easier pass at the inside towards Lovefield. Willie Gliss could be finding himself in the middle of the battle between Colin Keneath and Matt Daly now, as well as Matt Daly scythes his way up through the inside, through Lovefield, and back now through Woodcote and down towards Cobbs here. A great run, though, for Colin Keneath. Alan Matthews and Barry Clayton, in the meantime, both had a great launch and now are both still leading this race after all is said and done. That was Colin Keneath off and towards Cobbs there. Has he been able to get it out of the wall? He has, luckily. Not a repeat of Max Verstappen and Lewis Hamilton, which I believe that's over 3 years ago already. Anyway, it's still Colin Keneath for P4 at the moment. Willie Gliss is hunting Colin down at the moment. Matt Daly is focused on catching up to Barry Clayton up in front, and a seconds margin between Barry Clayton and Alan Matthews. Meanwhile, further down the order, Rob Whitney against Andrew Brammer now as we run down the Hanger straight. Andrew Brammer has the advantage of the slipstream, but Rob Whitney's car seems to be looking rather potent down the straight, it must be said now, heading through Stowe here, as it looks like Colin Keneath has had an off. He has had an off through Stowe. Bit of a messy start to race 2 then. For Colin, will he be able to get underway? The brakes smoking, of course, not getting that cooling effect, and he's into the pits. Is Colin Keneath and out of this race. Colin deciding that this weekend not worth the effort then, so it will be another fortnight until Colin will have a chance at redemption in this series. I say that like it's going to be pivotal in his championship drive. He's done a fantastic job so far this season and has a fairly huge margin. This just allows the others to catch up. He probably meant it intentionally. Either way, we're on board with Barry Clayton at the moment, who isn't focused on Alan Matthews out in front. He's focused on Matt Daly, race 1 winner, of course, surprise race 1 winner at that. Matt Daly now hunting down Willie Gliss as they are side by side down the Wellington straight. Matt Daly actually maybe getting a nose out in front. No, he loses that momentum as soon as he leaves the slipstream of Willie Gliss. Has the inside though into Brooklands, is going to just about hold it as well. Great move by Matt Daly and ahead of Barry Clayton then. So Barry Clayton losing that position, both in identically liveried cars. Are they both carrying the number 13? They might both carry the number 13, so don't pay too much attention to the numbers anyway, because they are the wrong number. Matt Daly running number 4, of course. No, Matt Daly, number 4, 14. There we go, you can follow that one. And then Barry Clayton running number 15 there. As that looks like that was Jack Hudson having a bit of an off through Cobbs. I don't think that was a bit of an off, actually. I think we're using the IndyCar line through Cobbs, which is fair enough, as long as everyone's doing it. I say, why not? Over the curve, then the back end on Jack Hudson's car actually stepping out a little bit. Now, what I've seen in the past, at least in these Sunday fun races that I've participated in, the false start that Jack Hudson suffered, that means that usually within the first couple of laps you have to dive into the pits and serve a 30-second penalty. It wasn't the Sunday fun race, actually. My memory is already failing me at the tender old age of 22. It was the what's it called? My brain is having a complete meltdown. Just give me a second. It was the Winter Endurance Championship. That's, of course, what we spent about 8 rounds participating in. We're glad that you finally remembered, and here it is now. In that series, I also had a false start and found myself sat in the pit lane after a couple of laps. And there is Jack Hodson now serving his penalty for that. You're given a couple of laps to race around as normal, but within a couple of laps, you have to jump into the pits for a stop-go penalty. Is it a stop-go? It is, in fact, a stop-go penalty. No, maybe it was a drive-through. Could be mistaken there. That will cost you a lot of positions. It has cost Jack Hodson a lot of positions, but importantly, for his sake, I'd suggest, hasn't taken him out for the race. He's still only a couple of seconds off the likes of John Cole, who's of course very fast, very competitive driver himself. And then we have the likes of Steve Knight, Rob Whitney and Andrew Grammer a few seconds on the road here. So it's brought him back into play, this drive-through penalty. He's not completely out of it. He's been penalised for a false start there, which I think fair enough on this occasion. You can get a false start for its car creeps at all in Assetto Corse. Maybe there's a couple of centimetres kind of margin in it, but pretty much if it's any kind of movement that's noticeable to the human eye, you get penalised. It can be a little bit harsh because you don't even leave you can do that without even leaving your grid box, of course, and there's no tangible advantage at all to that movement, but the game penalises it for you. However, in Jack Hodson's case, it was a clutch dump. It's just too early off the line, whether that be through a physical issue, whether it be accidentally letting go of the clutch or something happening with his rig, or just anticipation, as it was in my case in the endurance challenge. So I think that was a fair penalty, given that he's still involved in the mix here, and we've just made it a little bit more harder for him. That's all. He's just got a few more cars to overtake, so there you go, Jack. Enjoy the battling. We're on board at the moment, though, with someone else who is enjoying some battling with 18 minutes to go in this race. It's Alan Matthews, just over half a second behind Matt Daly now ahead down towards Vale. In fact, the top 4 fairly close together. Yeah, still keeping decent pace with each other. In terms of the pace, fastest man out on track, perhaps no surprise, is Matt Daly with a 2:08. His last lap though, 2:04. So a little bit slow. That has brought Alan Matthews, who we're on board at the moment, back into contention, and everyone else is lapping in the 2:03, 2:04, maybe 2:05 range at the moment. So actually, all things a fairly competitive field at this stage in the race. Got a bit of battle going on actually between the likes of Rob Whitney. I know Rob Whitney seems to be a little bit ahead at the moment, between Steve Knight and Jack Hodson here, as we head now through the loop and down the Wellington Straight in just a second. Steve Knight against Jack Hodson. Now Jack Hodson should have the advantage here. We don't entirely know what setup he's running, so it could be different aero loads, but he does have a bit of a slipstream. But I would say actually Steve Knight's car is still looking rather strong down that straight, and that's kept him ahead of ahead of Jack Hodson as we head through Luffield in just a second. Here we are heading through Luffield. There's no delay actually between what I'm seeing and what you're seeing in the commentary and all that. It's just I've completely lost my positioning on track. We're now heading on the exit of Woodcote, so just to make sure the reference is correct. Yes, it is. We're heading now through Copse, and actually these two keeping relatively decent pace given they're in the midst of battle. There is Jack Hodson with that slightly wider line there, and now we head down through Beckett's here. 2:07 at the moment, predicted for Steve, and it'll actually be his fastest lap of the race so far, so being spurred on by Jack Hodson as we head now down the straight. And towards Stowe just a moment time. There is Jack Hodson with a cleaner exit through Beckett, through Chapel rather, actually gets a fairly decent pace advantage, and up the inside into Stowe, gets the position and up into P8 for Jack Hodson. So slowly but surely working his way through the field. And Matt Daly, speaking of working his way through the field, he had to do it in race 1 because that's to do less of it here in race 2, and is instead slowly building a nice, not by no means comfortable lead just yet. Still only 3 seconds. Anything can happen, as we saw with Colin Knief in race 1, but is beginning to control the field now. He's looking quite happy out there on track now. Alan Matthews, meanwhile, isn't able to focus on keeping up with Matt Daly. Instead, he's got to focus on keeping Willing Bliss behind him, that fantastic Pro GP inspired livery. there, a couple of seconds ahead of Barry Clayton, who's not quite in no man's land territory just yet, but he's getting there. He's now about 3 seconds down on winning list, but he's got a fairly decent margin to that midfield, so he's running in P4 at the moment, just ahead of Andrew Brammer. Andrew Brammer ahead of John Cole, who's made a decent recovery through the field, now up into P6, so a few more points on cards for him. And speaking of points, we'll have a look in just a moment's time at how the championship is shaping up after that first race. So here we are, just under a fifth of the way through the championship. We will in fact be at a fifth of the way through the championship when we conclude this race. But Colin Keith, who still leads with 105 points to his name, as Barry Clayton gets ahead of Willing Bliss out on track. Is that over to some type of issue? It is. Willing Bliss then has a bit of an off. Where was that? That was heading through. That was heading through Maggots and Beckett's actually on the entry into Maggots. Not a entirely traditional place to have an off. He has been able to get underway, but is now very much on the back foot, because here is Andrew Brammer, who's hot on his heels. Actually has a bit of a pace advantage in comparison to him. It is Andrew Brammer who is looking to try and get the overtake done. Isn't able to do so just yet. But now also it's a three-way battle here for P4. So John Cole, who is plumb last on lap 1, now fancies a chance at the outskirts of the podium here. So a good drive for John Cole so far in this race. These three all in sync now as we head down the Hampton train and start the next lap. We'll stay on board with this trio as they enjoy their battling, because there is John Cole up the inside at the start of the loop here, actually getting ahead of Andrew Brammer. A fantastic move late on the brakes for the two similar liveried cars there. Andrew Brammer, the giveaway there, he has the Martini livery down the side of his car and has acquiesced and into P6 for Andrew Brammer. Meanwhile, John Cole gives him the tow down towards Brooklands. Will that give an advantage into the braking zone? No, he's too far back to make anything stick just yet. Well, you see actually a bit of a barn door wing there on John Cole's car. It's a bit more apparent on his car than the others. Of course, they all run the same wing. The wing itself doesn't really change in shape based on how you change the aerodynamic settings in the tuning menu. It's a fairly decent wing on these cars, it must be said, which is beneficial for the likes of Maggots Beckett, who want that higher aero load, in combination with some good tyres for that extra mechanical grip to allow you to attack those corners with a decent amount of speed on the understeer, because that will only exacerbate the problem. It'll not only be wash out wide all the time on track, you'll heat the tyres more, that'll make it even more difficult to grip up, and that will only be a bit of a snowball effect there for the tyres. We're now around about the halfway stage of this race. We're coming towards the 6th lap of this race, and race 1 was around about a 12-lap race based on where you were on track. So approaching that halfway stage, let's have a look at the championship after race 1. Well, it was Colin Keith with 105 points at the moment. That gap to P2 has shrunk ever so slightly, with those in P2, P3 and P4 for that matter, scoring some more points in that previous race. Willing Bliss then with 64 points is in P2 in this championship, but will, as it stands, be losing that to Matt Daly. Matt Daly in P3 with 52 points to his name, tied with Alan Matthews. So Matt Daly breaking away from Matt Daly in terms of the championship. Sorry, Matt Daly breaking away from Alan Matthews in terms of the championship points. John Cole currently 47 points to his name in P5. He's hoping to get ahead of Willing Bliss here in order to try and improve that. Andy Craig currently in P6, not here this evening, I believe. So we're in P6, 45 points to his name. Barry Clayton meanwhile P7, 40 points to his name. Andrew Brammer with a few more points under his belt after that race 1. P7 in the championship, 40 points to his name. He is P8, 31 points to his name. I can read numbers, I promise. Jack Dodson P9, 20 points to his name. And then we have Rob Whitney and Steve Knight with 9 and 8 points to their name respectively. They should score a few more here in the race on the way towards Paul Milman in this championship. So still all change, obviously the early days in this championship so far, and still a lot to play for. So certainly has a lot to play for in this race and doesn't want to be suffering any more issues in this race. Here it all went on from a few laps ago, and that was John Cole having a brief look to try and get the overtake done, but Magnus Beckett's not a traditional overtaking opportunity on this track. It's an opportunity to make time, it's an opportunity to lose time, but it's maybe more so in the open wheel cars than, say, the GT Golf. It's not usually a traditional overtaking spot just because the speed's involved. Potentially, though, in the likes of these GTM, GT3s, the odd overtake can be made here and there. It's one of the good things about running a slightly slower car, slightly more traditional car, if you will, is that the track's kind of open themselves up for a few more overtaking opportunities, a bit more raceability in a slightly slower car. We do enjoy the challenge of these being based on the Formula 1 car. And now, the last bastion of Alfa Romeo in Formula 1 machinery, if you will. Now the Sauber has suffered the misfortune of losing Alfa Romeo as a title sponsor. It's a great shame. Less than 10 minutes to go in this race, and things are looking a little bit rosier for Matt Daly. Just under 10 second lead between him and Alan Matthews. Controlling this race well. We've seen this before. Obviously, John Cole was controlling this race. Colin Knief was controlling this race even better in race 1, but we saw how that ended for him. So hopefully, for Matt Daly's sake, no repeats of that here in race 2. Best lap at the race at the moment going to Matt Daly, a 2:02.2. All the twos there. Currently lapping in the high 2:2. So good management so far of his pace. It's around about this point in race 1 where we suspected that maybe the tyres were starting to drop off ever so slightly. Doesn't look to be the case at the moment. With drivers maybe learning from their experience in race 1, potentially the tyres looking a little bit happier in race 2. That might just be owing to the battles we've had and the different circumstances between the two races, because I'm sure drivers like Willie Bliss and John Cole aren't really focused on what their tyres are looking like there. Instead, they're focused on a bit of fantastic racing action. 2/3 of the way into this race now. And it is Willingless ahead of John Cole, only a few tenths of a second to separate them as we run down towards Stowe. Once again, the brake disc running red hot, and the rear brake disc goes to show just the amount of energy running through these cars. Not often, not always the case that you're going to see the rear discs completely on fire as well. We do with these GTM GT3s. While they are light, of course, especially in comparison to the road-going counterparts, they're of course by no means the lightest racing machinery out there, and especially when you considering the speeds involved, quite a lot of cars to be stopped heading into corners like Stowe. Contact there between Willingless and John Cole. That was John Cole attempting a bit of a switchback, last minute move under braking to go for the outside of the corner as we headed down towards the loop. And unfortunately for John Cole, he clipped the back of Willingless's car. Now I believe, and I'm glad to confirm, that they have both been able to get underway. No kind of major ill effect really as a result of that. They're a little bit closer than perhaps they'd want to be to Andrew Bramble. They lost a few seconds in that, but no major consequences in terms of the overall race picture. They have been able to get underway with relative ease. John Cole a little bit less than Willingless, but they are pretty much in the same position. So a little bit of a racing incident, no real ill effects. Glad to see that we're able to carry on. The only real kind of change in that is potentially Andrew Roberts, the benefactor, because now he might be sniffing a chance at a P5 or a P4 if he plays his cards right in the remaining few minutes of this race. The order hasn't changed between these two. It is still Willingless and John Cole fighting it out now as we head down towards Magnus Beckett. We've seen this in the past. We're going to have another go at it now. John Cole having a bit of a look around the outside and no moves to be made so far. What happens as we head down towards Chapel in just a second is going to be Willingless on the defence on the inside. John Cole having a look around the outside here. No, he's going to switch back towards the inside. Who gets the better run out of Chapel then as we head down towards Stowe? John Cole not opting for that slipstream, doesn't need that slipstream, has a little bit more straight line speed under his belt. He's going to be around the outside of Stowe if he can make it stick. He can't quite make it stick, that inside line's still too strong for him. Willingless late on the brakes through the inside there. Maintains his position for now, but for how long? That is the question as we head into Vale. Once again, on the brakes, both of them. We head down towards the Hamilton Straight once again here, and it is Willingless running about half a second ahead of John Cole into that first corner once again. Don't quite appreciate actually just seeing that bird's eye view, just make sure just how aggressive the diffuser is on the back of this car. So there's plenty of aero on the GT3s. Of course, not a real life racing machine, instead an ode to the Julia, the fantastic saloon car. A brilliant and sympathetic one at that. The LP Designs GTM GT3, a brilliant model. We're very thankful for the sport and his fantastic offerings to the sim racing community. We benefit from them immensely, the likes of this GTM GT3. A couple of interesting cars from as well, the Maserati. Making his racing debut, or is that still just another brilliant piece of imagination? If it is, it is a fantastic one. That as well, I've had the pleasure of driving that one as well. It's a Nettuno V6 engine, of course, a fairly distant relative of the V6 we are running here in the GTM GT3. A great kind of noise to have behind you as you drive along. Of course, behind you in this car, it's in front of you in this car, based off the Julia Saloon. Speaking of in front of you though, it is Willingless ahead of John Cole as we head now through Max Beckett's. The order still has not changed as we approach the final 5 minutes of this race. These two for quite a while, but still battles going on elsewhere. Rob Whitney and Jack Hodson were looking relatively close as they exited Chapel. Then seemed to have spread out a little bit more, but I suspect the battle could continue on as we approach the final few minutes of this race. Barry Clayton is ahead of Willis and John Cole. These two still battling it out. Jack Hodson does in fact get ahead of Rob Whitney as we headed through Stowe there. So close. The time system reporting that as around about a 2-second gap, but I can tell you it's much closer actually on the track. In fact, I've once again had a complete brain meltdown and failed to read basic numbers. The gap is correctly reported to 2/10, not 2 seconds, as we head into Brooklands there, and there is John Cole trying a very brave move, not really have the inside line there, but making it anyways, goes over the curbs. Doesn't upset the car too much, happily though, and doesn't lose out too much time as well. In the final 3 minutes of this race now. Cops to negotiate once again there. In the distance is Andrew Brown. Steve Knight up into P7. Has that been the result of a bit of contact? It looks like it was actually. Steve Knight is, no, that is not the result of some contact. Ignore me, there's no change of position there between those drivers. There may be though between John Cole and Willingless at the moment in time. No, still not yet. These two enjoying a brilliant battle. Let's have a look at what's going on elsewhere though, because we haven't seen it for a little while. Matt Daly leading with a 15-second margin. Great racecraft here in race 2. Not too much to report from his side of things. Alan Matthews and Barry Clayton, of course, starting this race in the front row. Currently running in P2 and P3. Willingless then under pressure in P4 at the moment, fighting for that strong points scoring position against John Cole here in P5. Just behind them is Andrew Brammer. Then we have Jack Cotton and Rob Whitney enjoying the battle a little while ago. And then we have Steve Knight rounding up the running in P9 at this point in time. Silverstone has certainly delivered this evening some fantastic racing action as ever. We had now to start in the lap with the runners battling for P4 and P5. Now we have 1 minute 40 left on the clock. Matt Daly is currently heading down towards Woodcote here, so my maths may have been, I say it's actually 1 minute 40, it's actually around about 1 minute 20. We are about, well, let's have a look at the second lap. We are a minute into this lap. So this means that this is going to be the penultimate lap of this. No, actually by about 8 seconds or so, it won't be the penultimate lap of this race. Matt Daly should get around the track to start that with just the nick of time. So very very impressive running from if he's able to do so, because we're already 11 laps into this race. Go back on board though with Willingness, has built up a slightly larger margin, only by the tune of a couple of tenths as he heads through Corse this time round, and I get the feeling that gap is going to close up. It will close up. It looks like John Cole is consistently getting a better run on the exit of Corse, but Willingness is able to defend well enough through Max Beckett's. One of the benefits of the corner complex is that the corner kind of fall towards you, the track sort of guides its way towards you, and that allows you to use the track to your advantage when you are defending. You just allow the driver attacking to almost kind of put himself in a bad position, and he's trying to put himself in a good position here, John Cole, as he has a look around the outside. If he can try and get a move to stick there, under braking into Stowe, isn't able to do so just yet, and instead remains in P5 for the time being. It is, in fact, my maths was a little bit off, the penultimate lap of this race now, and Matt Daly is heading through the loop and onto the Wellington Straight once again. Has been a great drive for him so far. For Matt Daly, there has not put a foot wrong in this race, really. Of course, an even more impressive drive, arguably, in race one. Last to first, ended up coming out on top, and it will be another win as it stands at the moment. It will be an impressive feat and helps him out immensely in the championship. John Cole briefly got ahead. That was only on a technicality. He was off the track as he did so, has lost a lot of time in what he probably felt was one last big opportunity. Was it though? There was Brooklyn to negotiate, Maggotts, Beckett and Stowe and Vale as well. Silverstone's one of those tracks which favours overtaking, and unfortunately John Cole might have scuppered all of those opportunities early into the lap. As it stands, it's going to be Willingness who will be finishing this battle, this what has felt like a race-long battle for P4. Matt Daly, speaking of those fantastic corners, is heading around Maggotts and Beckett on this final lap of the race, so let's watch him now as he heads down towards Stowe here for what has been a great drive for the yellow and red liveried car of Matt Daly. Fastest lap, 2:02.2, fastest out of any track. I suspect if Colin Knief was still present here in race 2, we could have dipped into the 2-minute ones, which would have been faster than qualifying if my memory serves me correctly. That doesn't matter too much though. What does matter is Matt Daly is navigating Vale for one final time here this evening for round 3 of the 999 Corse Touring Car Championship. And what a drive it has been for Matt Daly. That's the first in race 1, and a crushing victory in race 2 as well. As no, this will be the final lap of the race. A timing system glitch there. So we'll wait once again for Matt Daly. We'll wait with bated breath for him to come round the track for one last time in this race. That does, though, afford Willingness and John Cole a few more opportunities to enjoy a battle. John Cole a bit further back than perhaps he would otherwise like to be. Still, maybe something can happen yet in this race. Barry Clayton, we should point out, and Matt Daly and Adam Matthews, for them, we should point out, completing the podium rather quietly. They, as we've said in the past, have enjoyed the battle on plenty of occasions. They started this race on the front row of the grid and are now quietly running in P2 and P3, so still a great race for their championships and a great weekend for their championships, in fact. More points on the board under their belts. Let's have a look though at that battle between Willingness and John Cole. It is only about half a second, maybe a little bit over that, as we head now down towards Brooklands. I think it's Brookfield. Brooklands once again. The advantage of that toe laying into John Cole's hands. But who has the faster car in terms of the cornering speeds at the moment? Well, into the 2-minute 5s for both drivers, so those tyres start to drop off. Maybe a bit of fatigue kicking in. So, fairly evenly matched, I would say, at this moment in time. What I can confirm, though, is John Cole is still actually, well, Willingness and John Cole catching up to Barry Clayton at this point in time, by the looks of things. So, some strong running from these two, despite their battle. But, and I can confirm this will be for the final time of this race, it's Matt Daly heading to Vale. Has been a great drive, you've heard this all before. It is bit of deja vu here, but for one last time after 2 fantastic races, it will be Matt Daly who weaves across the line in celebration to take the race 2 victory. It is a double victory then, not quite a grand slam. Colin Knief, of course, takes pole, but a fantastic drive from Matt Daly to come home with that checkered flag there. Then we have John Cole actually losing a position to Andrew Brammer. John Cole in the pits as well. What has happened there? Oh dear, disconnection. Alan Matthews crossing the line in P2 and then shortly behind with Willinglis not too far behind at all. It's going to be Barry Clayton in P3 rounding out that podium there. Congratulations Barry Willinglis coming on with what was a hard-fought P4. But John Cole, out of nowhere, disappearing. What a shame for him. He's had a fantastic drive and is now DNFing and out of this race. So that's Andrew Brammer coming going P5 and Jack Hodson will come going in a moment in P6. Of course, serving that penalty early on. Didn't quite side his way through the field like potentially otherwise have seen in the past, but still some decent points and decent recovery overall. Comes over P6 and then lots of a couple more points in race 1. Coming home with P7 in the end, and then last of our runners who are able to complete the race as we have Robin crossing the line here to take P7 will be Steve Knight. With what has happened there? That is a very confusing end to the race for John Cole, and it just goes to show, just as we had in race 1, you can't rest on your laurels here in the AROC Racing Leagues, because that's certainly a bit of a turnaround of events for John Cole, just as it was for Conor Knief in race 1, and what a confusing conclusion to this evening's running. We do have some victory donuts on those two people, so that is business as usual in that sense. That is Alan Matthews contributing to those donuts rather nicely. Will. Come on, Matt. It was a bit of a spin, bit of a pirouette. Send off those rear tyres. There we are. Bit of a burnout at least. Yes, an odd end to the race for John Cole. And that is 2 confusing race ends for this round here at Silverstone. But I hope you've enjoyed watching it as much as I've enjoyed. Commentating will catch you in a fortnight's time for the next Tour car round and next week, of course, for the next Formula Alpha action. These are our Matt Daily Victory Donuts that we tuned in for, so I will leave you, I will bid you adieu with the backdrop of some fantastic